beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another rankings video. For today's video, I'm going to be ranking the last 15 eyeshadow palettes that I've tried. I know, it's been a minute since I've done one of these, but life has been lifing and we are finally here. And quite frankly, I typically like to do 10 palettes per one of these videos, but it's been a while, so I'm doing 15. I thought about doing all of the palettes that I tried, but honestly, it was going to be too much. And I don't like comparing palettes that I've tried weeks and weeks and weeks ago to the ones that are pretty fresh in my mind, because it feels like it'll be an unfair comparison. So I pulled out some of those older palettes, and I think what I'm going to end up doing is just doing a separate video on those, ranking them separately, because I think it's an unfair comparison to what I have now. So this video is just going to be the 15 most recent palettes that I tried. Now, before we dive in, if this is your first time watching me, welcome. I'm Jamila. I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup. I love all things skincare. And I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to find high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, I would absolutely love if you would consider subscribing and joining the fam. Okay, I don't know why I'd be doing those weird dances. Jesus, Jesus. And why am I calling on Jesus? Anyways, so this was a little hard for me, both in terms of the fact that I have a lot more palettes, well, 5 more palettes than I typically rank, and 2, I really like most of these. Well, all of them. All of them I like, so it was hard for me to place them in places because for the most part, they're really good palettes. Now, I'm going to say this once and one time only. If one of the palettes that you like is in the bottom, that is not my problem. This is honestly not that serious. It is just for fun. It's all kicks. So, you know, don't take it too serious if I rank something a little bit lower. It's 99.9% preference rather than anything else. So that's kind of where it falls. Anyways, let's go ahead and start off with palette number 15. Now, coming in at number 15 is one that I am pretty disappointed by, and I'm trying to decide if I want to put it on my Mcgrath or not, and that is the She's a 10 palette from Dose of Colors. Now, I wanted this so badly when they previewed it because I think Dose of Colors is a brand that is pretty underrated. They have a pretty decent eyeshadow formula. I have a ton of their older palettes as well as some of their older singles, and I really enjoy them. I think that they create an amazing matte formula. So I've had fun playing with some of my old Dose of Colors products. When I saw this one, I was like, oh, neutral? And like these more warm to like neutral shades? Absolutely 100%. But my issue with this is that I felt like I got a reaction when I used the shadow. Like, for the most part, my eyes were just like, no. And I am not somebody that has sensitive eyelids. So I don't have issues with specific pigments or anything like that, like 99.9% of the time. Like, this is the first palette I could recall where my eyes were just like, ooh, what's that? And it was very, very uncomfortable. I wore this twice, and both times my eyes were very uncomfortable with it. And then I even got some shadows in my eyes, some of the shadow in my eyes, which, you know, it is an irritant by itself, but it just hurt more than it should have because I've gotten eyeshadow in my eyes before, and this was just very, very uncomfortable. And it was almost like a burning sensation on the lids itself, which is not something that I experience. So I don't know what is in this palette, what they have in here, but it was just not working for me. And it does say that this is vegan and cruelty-free, so I don't know. Something about this was just an irritant. So that's kind of why I'm like, I don't think I want to keep this. I want to put it on my Mcgrath. And I haven't seen anybody else complain about it, but I also don't see a lot of people reviewing Dose of Colors, so it's just very confusing to me. And like I said, I have Dose of Colors palettes in my collection, so I don't know what went wrong there, but yeah. So that's coming in at number 15 for the mere fact that it just did not agree with my lids and pretty much burned me. But that's a me thing, just putting it out there. Coming in at number 14, and it pains me to say this, but it's going to go to the Pat McGrath Sublime Seduction palette. This is a neutral palette from Pat. It's not great. It's not terrible, but it also was not the easiest palette to use. Now, the matte's perfection. I love these kind of neutral browns. They're absolutely perfect for my skin tone. The shimmers, they were like a lot of work. Too much work. And you could probably see a little bit from this shimmer that I kind of had to dig to get it to pick up and to perform the way it should, which is not something that a Pat McGrath shadow does or should do, in my opinion. One, this 6-pan is like $65, and 2, it's Pat McGrath. Like, I feel like 2 is number 1. It's Pat McGrath. She should just perform. So I felt like quality-wise, this was not the best quality from Pat, and it's a neutral palette, which in my mind is like the simplest thing to formulate, and Pat has so many neutral palettes that it shouldn't have been that difficult. So that's why it comes in at number 14. It was just doing the most and not doing the most of anything good. Coming in at number 13 is the Tom Ford Forbidden Pink Quad. There's nothing wrong with this quad. It's fine. It does take a little bit of elbow grease to use this though, because these two are cream shades. So you kind of have to dig in there a little bit, get it to pick up, and then they apply a little bit softer than they look in the pan. So you have to continuously build because they're cream shades. Even the shimmers are cream shades. So in terms of application, even though I got a very pretty look with this, and I did film the look that I created with this, it's just one that takes a little bit more elbow grease to get it to pick up and pay off on the eyes, which is fine. It's just like, do I want to keep doing that? Not 100% off, not 100% sure. And in terms of color story, it's not particularly inspired. It does have a little bit of versatility though, so you could either keep it in the kind of pinky vein or the more cool tone neutral vein. So you do get more than one look from it, but there are just so much better options on the market. And this is a $90 quad, so you know, she's not exactly exceptional. Okay, I'm gonna make a game time switch here. So coming in at number 12, I'm gonna give it to the Pat McGrath Passion Flu Quad. This was a limited edition quad by Pat McGrath. It is just a pink quad. So you get the one sort of maroon deep matte shade that you can blend out. You have two pink shimmers and then one gold shimmer. Standard, typical Pat McGrath, and these are basic shimmers, so they're not anything special. Like some of her quads do have more special shades, like the Venus and Fleurs, and even the Bronze Mirage, I think that's what it's called, quad that just came out. Those I feel like the shimmers had a little bit of extra something to it. These were just kind of basic. They didn't really do much of anything, so they were pretty on the eyelids, and the maroon shade blends out really well to be used as a transition and a deepening shade, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like an uninspired palette. And so that's going to be number 12, and then coming right up on its heels in the number 11 spot, Sunlit Seduction. I have never thought I would see the day that a Mothership would come, not even in the top 5. Never thought I would see the day. And this might just be me being bitter, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with the quality of this from a grand scheme of things. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. These special shades are not special. I don't know what the hell Patricia created, but this ain't it. These special shades, one, they're kind of creamy, kind of chunky. They look very regular on the eyes, and they fade. Y'all, I have never worn Pat McGrath eyeshadow that fade in my life. So when I put on a Mothership, I know this Mothership is going to last me at least 2 business days. Not that I'm wearing my makeup for 2 business days, but that is the expectation that I'm going into this with. And the fact that I wore these shadows and I felt like I experienced fading, the fact that every single look that I create with this kind of looks the same because they're all super pink, and maybe it's my complexion. I know my friend Dion says that she's be able to create pretty distinct looks. I am not. They all look the same on me. So it might be my complexion. It just like, this is $129. Like, that had to knock it down a little bit, because like when you're paying $128 or whatever, $28, $29, at that point you have to have a 10-pound eyeshadow palette that is extremely versatile. You can get multiple different looks from it. It should have special shades, and these ain't special. So yes, I'm bitter about it, and that's why it's coming in at number 11, because it wasn't it. It was so far from it. It like missed the mark completely. It didn't even know where the mark was to begin with. It was driving in a whole opposite direction. Just what happened? Let me inhale, because I'm a little heated, but it's just eyeshadow. It's not that serious. Okay, so let's go ahead and so that was the number 11. Let's go ahead and dive into number 10. Okay, coming in at number 10, another Pat McGrath palette. She can't win for nothing, y'all, right now. But there's nothing wrong with this, and I actually absolutely love this. The reason why this is coming in at number 10 is because it's an all matte palette, and I don't do all matte looks. So it has nothing to do with the performance of this or the quality of this. I think this is great. I've been using this with my Esam palette, and I find that it performs extremely well. I find that the shades that they pick are perfect for my complexion in terms of me having the perfect transition shades, a nice blend out shade, very rich chocolate brown. I'm always in favor of a rich chocolate brown. So I love the colors of this, and I love the performance of this, because you guys know I love Pat McGrath mattes. And this is the Velvet Liaison palette. So this is one that I absolutely adore. I've traveled with this. It's absolutely great. It's coming in at number 10 because it's an all matte palette. And for the most part, I don't do all matte looks. So I have to reach for another palette to use it. But in terms of performance, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that one. And if you can find that one in your Marshalls, as I know it's been popping up, I would definitely recommend picking it up because it's actually really, really good. Coming in at number 9, I have to give it to the Swarthy palette. This is from Beaute. This was a new brand to me. It's another Black-owned brand. It's a woman-owned brand. It's a Caribbean woman-owned brand. So I was really excited about this product. I think that this is perfection. Like, it is a beautiful, amazing neutral palette. It's on the warm side, so if you don't like warm toned eyeshadows, I would definitely say, you know, it might not be for you, but I like warm eyeshadows because I have a very golden yellow undertone. So these complement my skin tone really, really well. This yellow mustard shade shows up so good. Like, the pigment in here is absolutely amazing. It's so rich. I am floored. And the reason why this ended up getting a lot of notches higher is because of the fact that this is $26, y'all. $26. With what the makeup industry is doing right now, I have to give credit where credit is due, because the fact that that is so affordable, you get 12 shades, they perform absolutely well, the mattes are superb, and y'all know I'm particular about my mattes. It just had to. It had to. So that comes in at number 9. Coming in at number 8, I'm going to give it to the Color Palette from Ace Beaute. You know, Ace Beaute is a Black-owned brand. I didn't know that. I, like, stumbled upon it because they sent out an email and it was, like, Black-owned Businesses Week, and I was like, okay. And then they were like, then they showed their owner and they were Black-owned, and I was like, wait, why didn't nobody tell me that? But yes, Ace Beaute is a Black-owned brand, so hey, I love seeing so many of them on my feed and in my collection. But the Color Palette. So this was a part of their floral release, and this is a beautiful neutral palette. But I want to show you all the front first. So the palettes in this release are all inspired by, like, flowers. So they actually have dried flowers in the packaging, and I think it's so cool. This one is the neutral version of the palette. I really like the mattes in this. I think the Ace Beaute mattes are absolutely amazing. The shimmers are nice too. Are they the best shimmers I've ever used? No, but also this palette is $19.99. So again, price, y'all, price. With everything that's been going on in the world, I am here for everything that's affordable. So the fact that this is $20, and you know what, $19.99, less than $20, I save a penny. And you could use a coupon code, so I was able to get this at an even bigger discount, making it probably, I would say, around like the $15 mark. I think that's a great deal. And I love the sort of range of shades that they picked here, especially the mattes. Again, perfect depth, perfect transition shades for someone of my complexion. And this rich brown to deepen things up, amazing. And even though it's a neutral palette, I feel like the shimmers they chose allows you to get a couple different neutral looks, so it's not too repetitive. So I think that was at number 8, 7, yes. So this is number 7. So coming in at number 7 is the sister to that palette. This is the Begonia palette. Again, from the same collection, it has the dried leaves or the dried flowers in here, which I think is such a cute touch in terms of packaging. And this one is the most versatile of the collection I found. So the collection has 4 palettes. I chose to pick up 2 out of the 4 because I knew I wasn't going to use the other 2 other than to just try it once. And I didn't think it was economical for me to buy it just to try it. But what I like about this one is that there are kind of 2 distinct color stories here. For the most part, the other 2 and the 3 remaining in the collection, including the color, are pretty monochromatic. So you have the neutral, the other one is like yellow orangey, and then the other one is purple. So kind of on the monochromatic side, and I like some versatility in my palettes, so I ended up choosing this one. So you get the green, and this is such a stunning green. I was absolutely floored by this. And then you get the kind of pink shades. So if you wanted to, you could look at this as 2 separate quads. So if I were to cover this, you have the green side, and then if I were to cover this, you have that pink side. And of course, you can mix and match. So I love the fact that I got a couple of different looks from this palette and was able to mix and match and get a pretty, you know, versatile palette using this one. So this is why this one actually ended up ranking a little bit higher than the color for that versatility factor. Okay, coming in at number 6, I gave it to the Nomad Okavango Safari palette. This is such a cute one, y'all. Now, Nomad always kills it with their packaging. So you have the kind of like, what's this, leopard print, but it also has that sort of kind of like felt feel or velvety feel. So it kind of feels like animal skin. It's not. And I love the way Nomad really commits to a theme. So this is another neutral palette. Y'all know I love my neutrals. I love the Nomad formula. I think that they have one of the best mattes on the market as well. So all of the matte shades perform really well. They all have amazing depth to it. and pretty versatile, you know, like you get the kind of orangey gold shades here. This one is a little bit pinky peachy. You have a row of greens, and then the bottom row is entirely cool toned shades. So if you really look at it, you have warm, green, cool. So I do think that it is pretty versatile. Now, I know a couple of people felt like the swirl shades were a little bit hard pressed, and I 100% agree with that. They are pretty hard pressed. In terms of hard pan, I didn't experience any hard pan in my shadows. I didn't have that issue, but it is something that I want folks to be mindful of, because I do know others did experience that, so I want to make sure that I mention that. And just take into account what your application technique is like. If you are using creams, you know, all of those things can contribute to hard pan. But watch a couple of other videos on it to see if, especially if someone has a similar or the exact same makeup technique to yours, to figure out if that would be appropriate for you to pick up. Now, I haven't said anything about any of these because I don't have any codes with it. But the Nomad one I did receive in PR. So it was gifted to me. I did not pick it up, and I do have a code with Nomad. It's just Jamila. If you use it, you'll get 10% off of your purchase. Okay, so we are coming down to the bottom. This is the top 5, y'all. The tippity tippity ibbity bitty bit top. I don't know what that was, but let's rock with it. So coming in at number 5, I have to give it to the, what is this even called? This is the Industrial Color Pigments eyeshadow palette. This is from, what's her name? Isamaya. This is the Isamaya Industrial palette. This is the first one. I do have the second one. I picked it up. I haven't used it yet. Millie, Colin, who else? I think it was Mcgrath. They all convinced me that I needed to buy the second one. So I picked it up, but I just haven't used it yet. This is an interesting palette. Now, the reason why this ended up ranking higher than everything else is because of how very different this is. Now, there's not a lot of unique things on the market. There's not a lot of things that make me feel like, oh, this is different, but this one did, because you have a couple different textures here that you can play around with, mix and match. Some have more texture to it, some are more, some are smoother, some have more cream to it. Like, there's just so much going on with this palette that I feel like it's a true artistry palette. So it definitely allows me to play a bit more than the others, because I feel like the others have, you know, their standard formula, one and done, and except, you know, with Pat, it's supposed to be 2 and done, like regular shimmers, special shimmers, but, you know, I'm not bitter at all. But I feel like there's just so much going on with that palette that is just a lot of opportunities to play. Now, you may not like that, or you might. If you might want something that is very consistent, clear cut, you know what you're going to get. But I do appreciate having something in my collection that allows me to just play and experiment. Coming in at number 4, it's going to go to my Blend Bunny Sugar and Grunge palette. Y'all know how I feel about the Blend Bunny matte formula. It is my absolute favorite matte formula. I just thought that this was such a cool palette, and it definitely took me back to the 90s, you know. It definitely emulated the period that she was looking for. And what I liked about it is that she chose all of the new shimmer formula. This is like from the All Done Up collection, so you definitely had a elevated shimmer formula compared to what she's had in previous palettes. You have the option to go pretty neutral in terms of, like, you have neutral browns, you even have some silver tones, kind of grungy green, but then you have these other very complementary shades. Great opportunity to mix and match here, and I just thought that this was a really, really well put together palette. And those shimmers are the best shimmers that they have. Coming in at number 3, it's gonna go to the Esom palette. You know, I don't like all matte palettes, and I don't like all shimmer palettes, but this one, y'all, this is too expensive. Let me start there. It's $115, I think, is the price for this. It's over $100. I was able to get it, I believe, for $108 because I had a coupon. But it's expensive, but I understand why this is a professional makeup artist palette. Because when I did this look, my eyes were just like, come hither. Glorious. They were superb. Everything was soft. It didn't emphasize a single line. It blended into the skin like butter. It shimmered in the right light when the sun hit it the right way. Like, it was just so good. And I wore this to a trip that I took to South Carolina. It was hot. It was stupid hot. And it lasted all day. And it just looked perfect. And I was just, like, so happy with it. And I'm like, okay, I'm still mad about the price, but I also love the way my eyes look, so I'm gonna let it go. So yeah, I had a lot of fun playing with that. It was truly a good time with that palette. Two more. Dun, 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 dun. So coming in second place, not number 2, it's gonna go to the Fighter palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. Y'all, Fantasy Cosmetica hit it out of the park with this one. This is the first time they're giving us a neutral palette. This is their take on a neutral palette. And this was everything I wanted and so much more. So I love the mattes that they chose. We only have 4 pans in this. And something about Fantasy Cosmetica, I've said this before, I'll say it again. They know how to take a 9-pan palette, create a color story that makes sense, and also a color story that's versatile. Because they could have given us just straight up brown eyeshadow for this entire thing and made it like a very basic neutral palette. But they said no. We're going to make it neutral, but neutral with a twist, neutral with a drama, neutral with a vibe. So I love that they chose these sort of warm neutrals, and then you have the kind of silver, which gives you a cooler tone neutral. Because you have a warm neutral deep brown and a cool toned neutral brown. And then you have sort of the standard orange, a kind of like bronzy orange shade, a little bit of the red, some purple here, and then you have like a blue purple as well as this multi-chrome. And you know, they're creamy, they're rich, they're shiny, but they're not too shiny because sometimes indie shades can just be too much. But this is one that I feel like, depending on what you chose or what you chose to put on your eyes, you could actually get a very simple, everyday work friendly look. But I just appreciated how versatile this was. I had so much fun playing with this. I wore this to like a regular coffee shop. I got so much compliments on it. And I just had a good time. It was a lot of fun playing with that, you know? I didn't get bored, which is something that can happen when you're playing with a neutral palette because you know the kind of look you're going to get. But I wasn't bored. I had the best time playing with that. And I do have an affiliate code with Fantasy Cosmetica. Just Jamila. Again, all of my codes are Jamila. It'll save you 10% off of that. This was gifted to me in PR. Same with the Blend Bunny palette. That was gifted to me in PR. And I have a code with Blend Bunny as well. It's Jamila. Will save you 10% off. I think that's it. Okay. And coming in at number 1. Drum roll, please. Da, 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 da. Those are horns, not a drum. The Glamlight Rick and Morty palette. I know. If you watched my new releases video on this, I talked so much shit about this palette. I was like, oh, they just copied Scooby-Doo. That has already been made. Why they giving us this? And look at her in first place. Sometimes you're wrong. And when I'm wrong, I accept it with my whole chest, you know, comfortably. But this, y'all, this is neon goodness. They killed it with this palette. And I was so wrong. I thought that this was just going to be like Scooby-Doo. But here's the thing. It has similar colors to Scooby-Doo. But the colors in Scooby-Doo are vibrant shades, whereas these are neons. And I was very surprised by that because I feel like they didn't advertise it as neons. And it was only after watching a couple of creators do videos on it, I really realized that these were neon shades. They mentioned it. They pointed it out very clearly. And I was like, oh, that's different. That's not what I thought it was from the original, you know, release. And you know what? I'm going to take somebody blame for it, but I'm also going to say that Glamlight has released so much products within such a short period of time that this did not get the time to shine or the kind of engagement and publicity that I feel like it should have. So that was my fault. You know, not knowing was partly my fault for not really doing all of the research, but also I feel like they did not give this a lot of time to shine. Like this came off of the heels of 2 other releases within a couple of weeks. So, and even now I feel like a lot of people don't realize how good this palette is. Like if I had to recommend you pick something up from Glamlight, it would be this one. Like, cause she's amazing. Because right now I am currently testing the Chucky palette and I don't think I like it. I think this is going to end up on Macari too. But this one is it, y'all. The shimmers are stunning. They're absolutely amazing. They also made the conscious decision to put the shades here closer together because the Scooby-Doo palette had so much blank space that it was just dumb. And this one, I feel like they took the time to actually arrange this in a way that makes sense. You have light-ish shades that would work on all complexions. There's nothing here that's super duper light though. So it would have been nice to have seen maybe like a white to use as a blend out shade, because one thing I did realize is that all of these shades are highly rich, highly pigmented, and in the mid-tone range. Like, I don't think there's anything really pastel or light here. These two are somewhat light. These three, I should say. This one, this one, this one are probably the lightest shades here, but there's nothing super duper light. So it would have been nice to probably have a white shade. However, what they did do is that they did include 2 light shimmers, so you have a good inner corner highlight. And I know a couple of folks who are lighter complected tend to like having some lighter shimmers, because Glamlight does tend to give us a lot of very deep, rich shimmers. But y'all, this is amazing. Even the packaging is really nice. It's very sturdy, very well constructed. I do have a video on it. It's not going to be up before this one because this is just easier to edit. So I will put up the video eventually when I'm done with that Rick and Morty palette, because I had so much fun. I had so much fun playing in it. And Glamlight has some of the best mattes on the market. Like, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in the video that I did talking about the best matte eyeshadows, because I'm very, very particular about my mattes, and Glamlight mattes are superb. Okay, so that's it, guys. That was my rankings of the 15 latest eyeshadow palettes that I've tried. Let me know your thoughts below. Let me know what you agree and disagree with when it comes to the rankings. Remember, this is all fun and games, all love. It's not that deep, and my opinions can change tomorrow. It is now 1 o'clock. I'm hungry, so I'm about to go eat some lunch. So maybe after I eat, I'll feel differently, but that's just how I feel right now in this moment. I hope you guys enjoyed watching today's video. If you did, leave your comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the products that I showed. Like the video if you did as well. All of the engagement helps. And if you haven't already done so, what is you waiting for? That red subscribe button, go ahead and click that. There's also a little bell next to it, I think, that if you hit that, it will let you know every time I upload a new video. As always, I want to thank you guys so very much for watching, for subscribing, for engaging. I appreciate you so much more than you know. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!